June 28th, 2025, Night of Champions. What you're about to witness will completely change how you view the Bloodline forever. A betrayal so shocking it didn't just tear the dynasty apart, it rebuilt it into something more dangerous than we've ever seen. But here's what nobody's talking about. This wasn't random chaos. Someone orchestrated this entire apocalypse, and the clues have been hiding in plain sight for months. Tonight, I'm going to reveal exactly who pulled the strings behind Solo Sikoa's nuclear transformation, why Jacob Fatu's rebellion was doomed from the start, and, most importantly, where Roman Reigns fits into this master plan. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this wasn't just a match. It was a calculated takeover that's been brewing since WrestleMania. And if you think you know what's coming next in this Samoan Civil War, think again. The real shock is still coming. The wrestling world was set ablaze, and I mean literally on fire with reactions across every social media platform. Posts on X exploded with over 50,000 tweets in the first hour alone. Fans called it everything from the most shocking betrayal since Montreal to the rebirth of wrestling's most dominant faction. But here's what's fascinating. While everyone was focused on the violence and the returns, they missed the psychological warfare happening behind the scenes. See, what happened at Night of Champions wasn't just about Solo Sikoa defending his US Championship against Jacob Fatu. This was the culmination of a power struggle that's been building since Roman Reigns mysteriously disappeared after WrestleMania 2025. And I've been tracking every single breadcrumb, every cryptic social media post, every backstage rumor that led to this moment. If you're new to our wrestling family, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell because we dive deeper than anyone else into the psychology and politics behind wrestling's biggest storylines. We don't just report what happened, we reveal why it happened and what it means for the future. And trust me, after tonight's breakdown, you're going to see the Bloodline saga in a completely different light. But before we dissect every moment of this chaos, I need to address the elephant in the room. Where's Roman Reigns? Because his absence isn't accidental, it's strategic. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how his shadow is still controlling everything, even from a distance. Let's start with the match that changed everything. Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu for the United States Championship. On paper, this looked like a straightforward title defense. But if you've been following my analysis of Bloodline psychology, you knew this was never going to be just about gold. This was about legitimacy, about proving who deserves to carry the Samoan legacy forward, and most importantly, about Solo finally stepping out of Roman's shadow to build his own empire. Here's what made this match so psychologically fascinating. Jacob Fatu wasn't just fighting for a championship, he was fighting for redemption. Remember, this is the same Jacob Fatu who delivered that vicious super kick to Solo at Money in the Bank 2025, a moment that sent shockwaves through the wrestling world and generated over 2 million views on social media within 24 hours. That betrayal wasn't just personal, it was Jacob's declaration that he refused to be anyone's enforcer ever again. But Solo's response was masterful. Instead of immediately granting a rematch, he made Jacob wait. He made him stew in that betrayal. And most brilliantly, he demanded an apology, not because he needed to hear it, but because he knew Jacob's pride would never allow it. This psychological chess match was happening weeks before they ever stepped into the ring. Now, let's talk about the actual match, because these two Samoan beasts absolutely tore the house down. For 15 minutes, they showcased why the Bloodline has dominated WWE for years. Jacob's moonsault, and I'm talking about a 270-pound man flying through the air like he defies gravity, had the entire arena on their feet. The impact was so devastating that even the announcers went silent for a moment, just absorbing what they'd witnessed. But Solo's counter game was equally impressive. That Samoan spike he delivered wasn't just a finishing move, it was a statement. Every time Jacob tried to use his athletic advantage, Solo grounded him with that raw, brutal power that runs in Samoan blood. The psychology was perfect. The high-flying rebel versus the traditional powerhouse, the future versus the past, innovation versus tradition. What made this match special wasn't just the athleticism, it was the storytelling. Every near fall told a story. When Jacob hit that pop-up Samoan drop and the crowd thought it was over, you could feel the shift in momentum. For a moment, it looked like the rebellion might actually succeed. Jacob Fatu, the man who dared to challenge the family structure, was about to prove that sometimes the student surpasses the teacher. But then the lights went out, and everything changed. That moment, when the arena went pitch black and that low, pulsing beat filled the air, that wasn't just dramatic effect. That was the sound of a new era beginning. Because what happened next wasn't just interference, it was a hostile takeover that had been planned for months. And if you want to understand how deep this conspiracy goes, you need to see my breakdown of the Bloodline's complete transformation. I'll link that video at the end because it reveals connections you won't believe. When Tama Tonga's music hit, the crowd erupted, but they had no idea they were witnessing history in the making. This wasn't just a return, this was the activation of a sleeper cell that had been dormant for months. Tama Tonga, storming down that ramp with a steel chair, wasn't acting on impulse. This was calculated, precise, and perfectly timed to maximize psychological damage to Jacob Fatu. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Hikuleo's debut. At 6 feet 8 inches, this man isn't just tall, he's a walking earthquake. When he emerged from those shadows, the entire dynamic of WWE's heavyweight division shifted in real time. I've been tracking Hikuleo's career for years, and his debut was everything I predicted it would be and more. The way he tossed Jacob Fatu like a ragdoll wasn't just impressive, it was a demonstration of power that sent a message to every wrestler in the back. The game just changed. And then Tama Loa made his presence felt with that spear through the barricade. The impact was so devastating that security had to check on fans in the front row. This wasn't just a wrestling move, it was a statement of intent. Tama Loa's debut was him announcing that he's not here to play games, he's here to destroy anyone who stands in the new Bloodline's way. But the biggest curveball, and I mean this literally broke the internet, was Jeff Cobb's appearance. Posts on X went absolutely nuclear when he stepped through those ropes. We're talking about a New Japan legend, a man known for his Tour of the Island finisher and raw, devastating power, suddenly aligning with Solo Sikoa's faction. This wasn't just a signing, this was WWE making a statement about their global ambitions. Here's what's fascinating about Cobb's involvement. His presence bridges WWE and New Japan in a way we haven't seen since the Monday Night Wars. This suggests that Solo's new Bloodline isn't just about dominating WWE, it's about creating a Samoan empire that spans multiple promotions. The implications are staggering when you think about the potential cross-promotional storylines this opens up. The coordination of these returns and debuts was flawless. This wasn't 4 separate decisions, this was a synchronized attack that had been planned for months. The timing, the order of appearances, even the way they positioned themselves around the ring, everything was designed to create maximum chaos while establishing a clear hierarchy within this new faction. What made this moment even more impactful was the crowd's reaction. You could hear the shift from excitement to shock to complete bewilderment as each new figure appeared. By the time Jeff Cobb stepped into the ring, the audience didn't know how to react because they were witnessing something unprecedented in modern wrestling. This wasn't just about helping Solo win a match, this was about sending a message to the entire wrestling world that the Bloodline is back, stronger and more dangerous than ever. And if you think this was the end of the surprises, wait until you see what I've uncovered about their next targets. The video I'm going to show you next reveals exactly who's in their crosshairs. Now here's where things get really interesting, and I need you to pay close attention because what I'm about to reveal will change how you view everything that happened at Night of Champions. This wasn't random chaos, this was orchestrated by someone with intimate knowledge of Bloodline psychology and access to resources that go way beyond what Solo Sikoa could arrange on his own. Let's start with the obvious suspect, Paul Heyman. Now, I know what you're thinking. Paul's been working with Seth Rollins' faction, seemingly against the Bloodline. But what if that's exactly what he wants us to think? Paul Heyman is a master manipulator, a man who's been playing 4D chess in wrestling politics for decades. His apparent alliance with Seth could be the perfect cover for orchestrating Solo's rise to power. Think about it. Who benefits most from Jacob Fatu's downfall? Not just Solo, but Roman Reigns. By allowing Solo to eliminate Jacob as a threat, Paul could be clearing the path for Roman's eventual return as the undisputed tribal chief. It's brilliant, really. Let Solo do the dirty work, take the heat for the violence and betrayal, then have Roman return as the rightful leader who can restore order to the chaos. But here's where my theory gets really wild. What if Roman never actually left? What if his absence since WrestleMania 2025 has been a carefully orchestrated sabbatical designed to let the Bloodline tear itself apart so he could rebuild it stronger than ever? The timing of these returns, Tama Tonga, Hikuleo, Tama Loa, Jeff Cobb, all happening simultaneously suggests a level of coordination that requires serious backstage influence. And let's talk about Jeff Cobb's involvement specifically. His New Japan connections don't just happen overnight. Someone with serious industry relationships had to facilitate that signing, and that someone has the kind of influence that transcends company boundaries. Paul Heyman has those connections. Roman Reigns has that influence. Solo Sikoa, despite his newfound confidence, doesn't have that kind of reach yet. Here's another piece of the puzzle that everyone's overlooking: the social media silence. Notice how none of these returning wrestlers posted anything on their social accounts leading up to Night of Champions? That level of coordination requires serious media management, the kind that WWE's corporate structure typically handles for major storyline developments. The most telling evidence, though, is the psychological precision of the attack. Every move was calculated to inflict maximum emotional damage on Jacob Fatu while establishing Solo's dominance. That's not street-level thinking, that's corporate strategy, the kind of long-term planning that Paul Heyman specializes in. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. What if Seth Rollins is in on it too? What if his apparent conflict with the Bloodline is actually part of a larger plan to create the ultimate wrestling storyline, a three-way power struggle that culminates in Roman's return as the conquering hero? The evidence is all there if you know where to look. And in my next video about the Bloodline's complete transformation, I break down every single clue that proves this conspiracy goes deeper than anyone imagined. You're going to want to watch that immediately after this. Jacob Fatu is down, but if you think he's out, you don't understand the heart of a Samoan warrior. What happened at Night of Champions wasn't just a defeat, it was a declaration of war. And Jacob's response to this betrayal will define the next chapter of his career and potentially reshape the entire wrestling landscape. Let's analyze Jacob's position strategically. Yes, he took a brutal beating from 4 men, but that beating also accomplished something crucial. It made him a sympathetic figure. Before Night of Champions, Jacob was the rebel, the family member who turned his back on tradition. Now, he's the underdog, the man who stood alone against impossible odds. That transformation from villain to hero is wrestling gold, and Jacob's too smart not to capitalize on it. The apology demand from Solo is particularly fascinating from a psychological standpoint. Solo knows Jacob's pride won't allow him to apologize. That's the point. By making the apology a condition for a rematch, Solo is forcing Jacob into an impossible choice: swallow his pride or forge a new path entirely. But here's what Solo might not have considered: Jacob choosing the third option. What if Jacob doesn't apologize and doesn't walk away? What if he builds his own faction to counter Solo's new bloodline? The wrestling world is full of talented wrestlers who've been overlooked or pushed aside by established factions. Jacob could become the leader of the outcasts, the forgotten, the rebels who refuse to bow to family dynasties. Think about the potential allies: wrestlers who've been held back by politics, international talent looking for their breakthrough moment, even former Bloodline members who might be having second thoughts about the family's new direction. Jacob's rebellion could become a movement, and movements are more powerful than individuals. But here's the most intriguing possibility. What if Jacob's path leads him directly to Roman Reigns? Imagine the storytelling potential of the original tribal chief returning to find his family in chaos, with Jacob Fatu as the only member who remained loyal to the original vision. That alliance could create the most compelling wrestling storyline in years. The social media reaction to Jacob's beating has been overwhelmingly supportive, with fans using hashtags like #JusticeForJacob and #SamoanWarrior trending worldwide. This grassroots support gives Jacob something that can't be manufactured: genuine fan investment in his journey. That's more valuable than any championship belt. Jacob's athleticism and charisma have never been in question, but his character development through this adversity could elevate him to main event status. The best wrestling stories are about overcoming impossible odds, and Jacob now has the perfect setup for that kind of redemption arc. The question isn't whether Jacob will bounce back, it's how spectacular his comeback will be. And based on what I've discovered about the Bloodline's future plans, Jacob's role in this saga is far from over. In fact, he might be the key to everything that's coming next. Speaking of what's coming next, you absolutely need to see my analysis of how this Bloodline transformation connects to WWE's bigger picture. The video I'm about to show you reveals why Jacob's story is just the beginning of something much larger. Night of Champions 2025 will be remembered as the night wrestling changed forever. Solo Sikoa didn't just win a championship, he orchestrated a hostile takeover that rebuilt the Bloodline into something more dangerous and unpredictable than we've ever seen. Tama Tonga's return, Hikuleo's devastating debut, Tama Loa's explosive entrance, and Jeff Cobb's shocking alliance have created a faction that spans promotions and continents. But here's what everyone needs to understand: this is just the beginning. The conspiracy I've outlined tonight, involving Paul Heyman's potential puppet mastery, Roman Reigns' strategic absence, and the psychological warfare being waged against Jacob Fatu, is setting up the most complex and compelling wrestling storyline in decades. Jacob Fatu's journey from here will define not just his career but the entire future of the Samoan dynasty in wrestling. Whether he apologizes, rebels, or finds a third path entirely, his decision will have consequences that ripple through every major wrestling promotion. And Roman Reigns? His shadow still looms over everything. When he returns, and he will return, the wrestling world will never be the same. What do you think, wrestling family? Should Jacob swallow his pride and apologize for a rematch? Is Paul Heyman the mastermind behind this entire conspiracy? And most importantly, where does Roman Reigns fit into this new world order? Drop your theories in the comments below because I read every single one and your insights often reveal connections I missed. But before you comment, you absolutely must watch my complete breakdown of the Bloodline's transformation. I'm putting it on screen right now because it reveals the shocking connections between tonight's events and what's been building for months. Trust me, after you see what I've uncovered about their next targets and the global implications of this new faction, you'll understand why this Samoan apocalypse was just the opening move in a much larger game. In that video, I break down every single clue that led to this moment, including social media posts that predicted these returns weeks in advance, backstage reports that nobody connected until now, and the financial moves that made Jeff Cobb signing possible. Plus, I reveal which current WWE superstars are secretly aligned with this new Bloodline and who's next on their hit list. The evidence I present will blow your mind and completely change how you view not just the Bloodline, but WWE's entire power structure. This isn't just wrestling analysis, this is investigative journalism that exposes the real puppet masters behind the scenes. If you love this deep dive, smash that like button. It helps more wrestling fans discover our content. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our breakdowns, predictions, and exclusive insights. We're building the most informed wrestling community on YouTube, and your engagement makes it possible. Until next time, this is your channel name, signing off. Stay savage, stay loyal, and remember, in the world of wrestling, nothing is ever what it seems. The real story is always happening behind the curtain, and we're here to pull it back for you. Keep watching wrestling, keep questioning everything, and I'll see you in the next video where we dive even deeper into this Samoan conspiracy. Click that video now, you won't believe what I've discovered.